So it's always been a bit of an omen for me. Again, in the past, when I come out from Africa, genocide, Rwanda, mass graves, you could have put the population of this into at the time. People hiding in mass graves to avoid being massacred. People dancing with fiendish delight in their victims' blood. Genocide in Rwanda, hell on earth, the worst explosion of evil atrocities, manifestation of evil. When I returned from Africa, and my reason for going to Kisumu, Kenya, Jaffa and his Yardie gang threatening to burn my mother alive in her car the next time they saw her. Real evil saw trap. God confirmed I was to go, and to go urgently. Not one single penny from anybody, a genuine emergency. Life or death situation, a race against time. And 17 nuns hacked to death in a children's home, not that far from my mother's children's home, Covenant Home in Kisumu, Kenya, where she was helping street children and orphans. It's when nuns start getting hacked to death. Again, 17 nuns, 50 youths with machetes, who stood between them and the children in their care, Christian courage. And they were hacked to death, and their bodies, some of them still half alive, their mutilated bodies, put down a narrow shaft used for a toilet. So again, when nuns start being hacked to death, then you know things are getting pretty bad. I did confront Jaffa and his Yardie gang at Kisumu Marketplace. God turned that whole situation around. Again, just prior to my going, I had lost a good friend, Philip Hewitt, who'd come round on the Wednesday. The following weekend, his car overturned in Roydon, just outside of this, and caught fire. Philip was trapped in his seatbelt, and they couldn't get him out. And the Lord did give me Psalm 18 for Philip, tangled in the cords of death. Yeah, I called upon the Lord. So not saved in this world, but it's only saved in the world to come. So when I come out from Africa, everyone was in the centre of this, because this town football club had won the Vast Cup at Wembley in London the day before. This was on the Sunday afternoon. So everyone was in the centre of this to welcome back the Tangerines. This football club, again, had won the Vast Cup at Wembley. I was over at the Stag at Thetford with some friends. That was a nice afternoon. And again, the Stag at Thetford is not too far from Mildenhall and Lakenheath, big US air bases. That was a nice afternoon. People were having picnics. We were walking through the Thetford forest, and I was still thinking about all the people fleeing for their lives in Rwanda, through the forests of Rwanda. And there had been reports of 125,000 estimate people who had become trapped, and the militias and the soldiers were closing in for the slaughter. And then without warning, there was a blinding flash of light. And I have travelled the world and the seven seas. I've been in some big storms. I've seen some big storms, but I've never heard such an almighty bang. That absolutely shook the place. We did have some big downpours yesterday and some thunder, but this was an almighty bang. And it sounded like the heavens were just tearing apart. And just for a moment, you could have thought that Mildenhall and Lakenheath had been hit with a missile. And then this big electrical storm raged across East Anglia. And there were pictures of all the lightning of Yarmouth, which is in the east, in the direction of Russia and Ukraine. It's in the Eastern Daily Press newspaper. And the game of Dis winning the Vast Cup at Wembley on the Saturday, the day before, had been televised and was also being shown on the Sunday afternoon. And just as Dis was going to kick off, that's Mendlesham Mask over there, but that's Tackleston Mask in the other direction. Tackleston Mask was struck by lightning just as Dis was going to kick off. And all the televisions in Norfolk blacked out. So again, we're certainly all in range of war, the unexpected, when you least expect it. On a day just like today, we certainly can take a very big hit. And RAF Mildenhall, Lakenheath, it's where they just moved all the nuclear weapons to. So if Lakenheath took a big hit, it certainly would be game over for the UK. So always a bit of an omen for me. Again, one big firestorm coming in more ways than one. Financial, natural, solar and war. The experts call a perfect storm. So we can certainly take a very big hit. Again, when I was in Russia, Leningrad, I did see scale models of the UK and London, every strategic target marked, and the two big red pins. Again, Mildenhall and Lakenheath, Russian nuclear targets. And Russia at the time had just invaded Afghanistan, and the West was rearing up, so we did watch the Baltic naval fleet put to sea, and right by the Baltic naval docks there was an American general cargo ship called the Lord Nelson, so one big battle of Trafalgar on the horizon. So one big storm coming. And when I was in Africa also, in Kisumu, Kenya, I was standing on the shores of Lake Victoria, which is the size of England. The other side of Lake Victoria was Rwanda genocide. Again, the slaughter was relentless. Estimate around 1 million people slaughtered in 100 days. So people were being slaughtered in Wales for the next 100 days, women and children, the elderly and men. We'd certainly feel the impact of that here. So I was standing on the shores of Lake Victoria. Again, I was watching a big electrical storm over Lake Victoria, which is the size of England. And electrical storms in Africa are very impressive. Sheet lightning, bolts of lightning. As I was standing there, the Lord said to me, "Johnny, the storm is coming. The sword is out in Africa. The sword is out in the Middle East. The sword is out in the Far East. And the sword is out in Europe." And I knew it was the Lord's voice in my spirit, because I could understand the sword being out in Africa. I could understand the sword being out in the Middle East. And I could understand the sword being out in the Far East, war. But I was surprised in my spirit when the Lord said the sword was out in Europe, because nothing was happening in Europe. And then not long after my return, the Balkans, Serbia and Bosnia erupted into war. Plenty of evil atrocities from both sides, war crimes. And we had mass graves on our own front doorstep. And there were radar planes up over East Anglia. They were flying in bombing missions, again from RAF Mildenhall and Lakenheath, over RAF air bases in East Anglia into Serbia. And once again, the sword is out in Africa. There's big genocide of Christians in Nigeria, Cambodia. Sword is out in the Middle East, Israel, Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, Syria, Iran. Sword is out in the Far East. They just had their big military parade, and again the kings of the East, and their number is 200 million. Unstoppable land army who slays a third of mankind in the end times. And still men will not turn from their evil ways, and the sword is out in Europe. Russia, NATO, Ukraine. So the storm is coming and the sword is out, and in the scriptures the sword is flashing like lightning east to west, polished for slaughter, judgment. So will you escape in time? Will you get out alive? 90 seconds to midnight, time is running out. And the Lord Jesus Christ Joshua is the key and the door to our freedom now. Our eternal freedom, the Ark of the New Covenant. So we certainly do need to be in the Lord Jesus Christ Joshua, the Ark of the New Covenant, come hellfire or high water. May have to move physical location. Seek the wisdom from above. The UK can certainly take a very big hit. Russian state TV warning that in the event of World War III, the outbreak of World War III, London will be the first place to be hit. And they're Satan 2 missiles that can reach the UK in 3 minutes. And they're Poseidon nuclear drones that can sink the UK in a nuclear tsunami. So we're certainly all in range of the unexpected when you least expect it on a day just like today. And certainly can come as a thief in the night. Now plenty of planes still going east, coming back east. So again, one big firestorm on the horizon. 4 storms converging, financial, natural, solar and war. The perfect storm, the experts calling ET, principalities, powers of darkness, spiritual wickedness in high places. So we're all in this war of the worlds, good versus evil.